Welcome back, everyone, to Hypnotica with Chantelle and Melissa. Today, we are talking about how to let go, or how to how to feel safe sexually.
Yay, y'all. Okay, so I feel like this topic has come up with not only myself, but my clients and my friends, especially female-bodied humans. I want to share a little bit about my own journey with this. I still feel like I'm in it sometimes, like I still have to come back into this. And the first question I want to lead with is, what does safety mean to you? What does trust mean to you? And how does that feel in your body? What words do you associate? What sensations, what feelings do you associate with that? And if you don't know, that's okay. Allow, like, as you're listening to us today, as you go about your life and your sexy time life, just continue tuning into that question of, what does safety mean to me? What does it mean? And what does it look like for me to feel safe enough to let go? So for me, growing up, which I've shared before, like growing up in with being in religion in a conservative home, I I was raised to believe that it was bad and shameful to be a sexual being unless you were married. So it was very difficult to work it out in my mind that I was supposed to feel shame my entire life until marriage. And suddenly the shame would just dissipate and like not be there. And y'all, I've never been married. So I'm just out here like, none of this makes sense to me. I'm like, this doesn't feel right, but it is my conditioning. It was how I was raised. So while I can see that, I was also at a very, very young age. I was 15 at the time where I started questioning all of this. And I'm like, this doesn't, God made sex. Like, period. God made sex. So I don't think that it means that it's bad. And also being a feminine being raised as a feminine being, I am this, feeling like it was shameful for me to experience pleasure. Like I was supposed to be here for the pleasure of men, not for my own pleasure. So that created a lot of I'm hearing disorganized, like disorganized beliefs, disorganized actions, a lot of push-pull behavior with men, a whole lot of guarding, but then like giving myself to people that like emotionally and physically to people that couldn't like hold the space for it. And then doing that, people, a lot of my negative beliefs about myself were reinforced because of the patterns I was exhibiting and being in. On top of that, there were body image issues on like mixed in with that. So to feel uncomfortable in my pleasure, to feel uncomfortable in my body, how would I know how to let go? Like, how would that even register in my mind? Through the course of having an eating disorder, going through recovery for that, I learned that I wasn't feeling anything. So I was eating my feelings, fucking my feelings, working my feelings, constantly striving to be good enough to distract from actually living in my body, like really being in my own energy and my own experience. I externalized everything. What do I need to do to get you to like me? What do I need to do to get you to do this for me? All of that, which was so unhelpful. So once I had started learning how to tune into my feelings, which was starting to tip the scale of like, we put the food down and we feel so uncomfortable, so worth it. And then started looking at my patterns with men. Why am I so attracted to men who cannot provide emotionally for me the way that I also provide for them emotionally? What about that turns me on? And what about that feels exciting to me? Like, oh, I get to work for it. And if I'm working for it and then I can get this unavailable person to choose me, then that means I'm worthy. Yeah, we are done with that. So it's looking at that pattern and being like, Okay, if that's what I'm trying to extract from men who cannot give it to me, how do I, like, where do I self-source that sense of worthiness? For me, and I'm still working on this, it's a lot of self-validation and a lot of words of affirmation and a lot of seeing into myself and my experience instead of expecting someone else to see it, to see me first. So we want that, of course. We want the connection. We want people to see us and validate us and love us, but it's not, it's going to feel like they're pouring into a bottomless well if we don't do it for ourselves first. So we're looking at the feelings, looking at our patterns. In the actual moment of engaging with someone sexually, what happens for me if I'm feeling, if I'm starting to feel unsafe, sometimes it does have to do with a with the partner, and maybe I'm picking up on something from them, so it feels a little difficult to like let go because I'm just like, what's going on? And I've totally had moments where I have stopped the sexy time and been like, what's on your mind? What's going on? And we could talk about it. No shame, no judgment. Tell me what's going on because I'm picking up on it. And that is keeping me from feeling safe enough to like let go. If it's me, if I'm the one that is up in my head thinking about something else, I will bring my attention and my breath back into the present moment. So, what are all five of my senses doing? Seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, like, I mean, hearing, all the things like that keeps me present. And in that present moment, I can hear and feel what needs to happen. Do we need to stop? Do we need more? Do we need less? Like, in listening to and paying attention to my own experience, then I'm respecting and honoring myself and my body and my feelings, which then creates the inner safety for me to be able to fully let go and like being in pleasure. Sometimes I'm the one that needs to stop, and I'm the one that's like, hey, I need to, like, I'm having some feelings, I need to talk about it. Most of the time, most of my experiences with that, when I'm talking to people, have gone extraordinarily well. People like to know because chances are also high they might be picking up on the fact that like we're feeling some kind of way, right? And maybe they don't have the words. So when we can say, this is what I'm experiencing right now, this is what I need, things generally go better. And if they don't, if you are expressing a need and the person cannot hear, cannot meet that, or shames you for it, or something negative happens, then you have some information. And I'm not saying that's comfortable, but you have some information about whether or not you want to continue engaging with this person. Chantelle, I
Yes,
feel like that just went off.
good. Well, that's what happens when one shares a story. I've just been taking notes here with stuff that pops up in my mind while you're talking.
Oh my God, I like realize I'm like, oh, we are just going. Okay.
Good, good.
But I
Oh
also
my
want to hear from
goodness.
you.
Okay, so the topic of like feeling safe to let go sexually. I feel like, well, what you were just barely saying, um, like being present is just so important. Recently, actually, I had a partner stop and be like, okay, what is going on? Because he could sense, he was so present with me that he could sense that there were some walls up, and there were walls. And
Hmm.
I just broke down crying, and I was just like this and this and this. And he was patient with me and, apologized or whatever. Like it was such a connective experience. Like I felt like we connected like mentally and emotionally and like spiritually and then sexually. And it was like amazing afterwards, even though like when we got started, it was just like not good.
Hmm.
So like it was amazing to, be interrupted and be like, okay, what's going on? Like I really do feel like sex is like the cherry on the cake. Like it's not the cake itself. Like the cake itself is the relationship. And
Mhm.
then, yeah. um so many things I wanted to say. You were also talking about like kind of secondary gains, or like what do I benefit from this behavior, that you're seeing in yourself and not wanting to have. And the book Existential Kink, I know there's been
Mhm.
some controversy about, the author or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the um just the whole idea behind the book is, like, how am I getting off? How am I
Mhm.
getting off on this behavior? Like, there's a reason why we do everything we do. And if there's a behavior that we have, which happens a lot with me, it's like, why? Like, why am I doing this? There must be some secondary gain, something that I gain from this behavior. And once we look into that, it's just like, oh, okay, and then it kind of takes the power away from it. It's just
Mhm.
like, okay, so that's how I was doing that. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So and it's just like easier to pivot, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, there was like such a big transformation in my sex life when I gave myself permission to receive, to give myself
Mm.
permission to like not have to perform. Like that it wasn't my job to learn all the things and to like be perfect,
Mhm.
or to look perfect,
Yeah.
right? Like um I feel like a very feminine being, and the feminine aspect is receiving, right?
Mhm.
And I found that it's it was a good idea to go in that direction, and also to pivot towards my preferences in the moment, like to just be in the moment and not like have things planned out, or like, we've all been there in some sexy times where one or the other has like, okay, this is how it's going to be, this is, step one, two, and three, and done. It's like, what even is that? Like, that's not pleasurable.
Exactly. Yes.
And I mean, it's that way in life too. Like, let's do our podcast, for example. When we got started, we were just very like, okay, we want this to be perfect. We want to talk about
Yep.
this, this, and this. We had our list. Like, we were just like, okay, this is what's happening. And it doesn't leave that much room for just being in the moment and going where it takes us. And like, what
Mhm.
questions come up when you're talking to someone? Like, when you go out for coffee with somebody, do you have your list of questions there? Like, it's not an interview. Like, interviews are so uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
like, just a conversation where someone says something and then the other one has a question about it and like just presents it. And it's just like,
Mhm.
I I'm always amazed by how life mimics like the bedroom.
Yes.
And like that goes for trust too, like feeling safe to let go. How often do we in life feel safe to trust? Like, just feel safe to trust the universe that everything's working out for my best good. Like, there's always something up. There's always some kind of drama that we
Mhm.
could get attached to, or worry about, stay up all night about. But how can we feel safe to trust? Like, how can we just keep reminding ourselves that like we are supported, we are loved, we are okay. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. Like, even if
Mhm.
everything is the worst, like even if yeah, my kid's getting married soon, like in a few weeks. And, there's always these like, every wedding seems to have something that goes a little awry, right? And so the days coming up to the wedding is just like, well, what if this? And what if this? And what if this? It's just like, well, what if it does? That would be just fine. And, it was my kids who were reminding me of that. They were just like, it doesn't matter, mom. Like, if that happens, that's fine. Like, we're fine with that. And I'm just like, okay, right. Thank you
Yes.
for the reminder. We will be okay. Like, we don't need to worry about all this stuff. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, feeling safe sexually, I feel, has so much to do with the partner that you're with. And
Mm-hmm.
I read a quote this week. I won't be able to do it word for word, but it basically said that like when a man can be present enough to like go at the pace that the woman wants to, which is going to be different each sexual encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when he's present enough to go at their pace, then they'll trust him sexually, you know. But if
Yep.
he thinks, okay, so just because the first or second time she wanted to go like right away, you know, that meant forever, that the engine wouldn't need a little extra TLC before, you know, like uh yeah, women need a little bit more yeah,
Mm-hmm.
more, what's the word I'm looking for here? um before penetration, you need like
Yes.
a lot of touch, a lot of uh
More foreplay. Like,
thank you.
yes.
I love my brain, I do. My face isn't getting red at all.
Oh my goodness. I got
Oh
you.
goodness, yeah. Okay, I'll let you talk for a bit while I recover here.
No, I love what you're saying. Um, with women needing more. So, and like, and it's different for each, the same woman, but each encounter. Yes, it can't just be, because I definitely feel that. Sometimes I'm just like, can we get to the main event? Like, can we hurry up? And other times, I'm usually pretty good at communicating when I'm like, okay, I do need it to be a little bit softer, gentler. Like, it's just going to take me a little bit more time. I try to say that beforehand, especially if I'm feeling that. But I just saw something the other day that the hormone cycle for a male bodied person is 24 hours. And for a female bodied person, it is 28 days. Like, we go through these different, yeah, our hormones and the way they function, like week by week, are so totally different than our male bodied friends. And but we are expected to function on the 24-hour hormone cycle that men do. And that's not real for us at all. So, and the same thing is true sexually. Like we have our cycles, we have our feelings, and we need different things depending on where we are in the cycle. So it's good for us to know that about ourselves. We can communicate it to our partners. But it's also helpful, I think, for our partners to know that we are like I think we all know this intellectually, like we're all functioning differently, but to really sit with it and be present with that difference is something that I think a lot of us aren't great at, and then communicating it also not great at. So just again, an open invitation to pay attention to your cycle, um, if you have one, and then for men to just be a little bit more sensitive to that. Like we're all a little different. That's totally
Mhm.
fine. And yeah, the permission to receive thing is also tremendous. So I think regardless of your orientation or your gender, I think a lot of us have performance issues, like performance anxiety, like, am I doing it enough? Do they like it? Is this okay? And especially for some of us who aren't feeling super comfortable vocalizing what we like and don't like, it's confusing for everyone. And it's okay to be where we are. I'm not like trying to shame anyone. It's taken me a very long time to be able to vocalize things, and I still have trouble doing it depending on the situation and the partner. But looking into giving yourself permission to receive. And as you think about that or run that through your body and your filter, just notice what parts of you feel expansive and what parts feel contracted. And then explore, like, why do you think that is? What's telling you that it's not safe for you to receive? It's not safe for you to have this much pleasure. It's not safe for you to speak up about what you want and need. What are those stories going on in the back of your mind?
Wow. Yeah. And like the feeling safe also to ask for what you want. is a huge thing too. So I'm just thinking recently I've asked for music to be on, and music really makes me feel alive. It makes me more in my body and just makes me move a different way. And it's almost trance like, and I love it.
Yeah.
And there's also been times where like we've been, and I love this because when you talk ahead of time, like, and it's kind of like part of the foreplay, and then you get into it, it's just like when the talking kind of stops and I'm just like, talk to me. Or like he goes down there, so he's busy with his mouth and I'm like, tap tap tap.
Hey.
Like, I need you to talk to me. Like, I just feel
Yeah.
and then, well, like I just feel like it's kind of like a trance. Like in hypnosis, the person, like the person telling the story, if the other people who are listening to that story, like they're in that trance, like if they choose to listen to the story. And I feel like to be in my body, I feel like I need to be in a trance. Like I just need to feel like that connection with someone else. And if there's no like affirmation going on for me, like if nobody's like, you know, saying like, oh, you look amazing, like I love this, like just any sort of affirmation, then I get lost in my own thoughts, and then I can't be in my body. You know.
Yes.
Like it's been such a struggle for me to stay in my body instead of disassociating. Or just like going in the thoughts like, oh, what if you know, like this, or what if like I don't look this, or like that whole worthiness thing just kind of, I don't know, it's almost like it was stuck in a box and then it comes out of the box during sex and it's just like box, like I am worthy. Like
yes, absolutely. Yes. It's a lot. It's a lot being a person. So many things.
And it's fun. Like if life was perfect all the time, it wouldn't be an interesting life. So just being okay with not being okay, and realizing that life is yin yang, you know, like it's positive and negative, it's masculine and feminine, it's all those things, allowing all those things to be there. I don't want to go too into detail because this is like super personal, but basically the idea to hold two opposite ideas at the same time. Like I'm trying to think about how to word this. So basically that, like, so one part of me wants this, and then the other part of me wants this. Like it's more of like an analytical and then feelings thing. But like how can both of those coexist? How can they like talk to each other and like be together and coexist? And I feel like when two opposite things can coexist, that really allows for a lot of creativity and a lot of new things to be birthed. But how often are we just in resistance to one of those things, or having those two parts fighting against each other instead of trying to get along with each other? So that's been my evolutionary journey recently.
Oh man, I feel that all up in my guts. I'm like, ooh, yeah, the duality thing. Like, being okay holding, I'm not even gonna say two, like all the truths at the same time. And like where who is the you that is holding all of that? Like who's holding that? And then like how do you choose what to act on, and then what to internally process? Like at what point? Yeah, that's hard. That's really hard because we aren't taught that. We're always taught like these are good, these are bad, this experience is good, this is bad. Well, there's like good and, well, there's positive and negative, however you want to judge that in anything. So
and just because it's negative doesn't mean it's bad.
Exactly.
And like the more we're in resistance to life, like the more unhappy we're going to be. I just picture like a stream, like a almost current, right? Like trying to be like the salmon going against stream. Like it's just, it makes life so much more difficult. And like when you think about it, there's not a whole lot you could do about certain things. Like you just gotta go along for the ride and make the best of it. And like life is like a, game of improv. Like you're just
Yeah.
constantly, okay, well, and this, like this is allowed to exist, and this is, like, and I will pivot in this way. This is what I prefer in this moment. And yeah,
Hmm.
make it a game.
Yes. Then it's more fun that way. I feel like it's
Hmm.
more fun to navigate when it's like, oh, this is the game I'm playing. What move would I like to
Yeah,
make?
but if it's just like everything has to be perfect all of the time, like that's my favorite book in the world, and I've read it, so many books. My favorite book in the world is The Untethered Soul.
Hmm.
And it has a quote in there about like we give the mind the impossible task to make everything perfect all of the time and to make all of our relationships perfect. And like they have to treat me in this way, and their tone has to be like this, and they have to say these words to me. And it's just like, what? Like, what if it
Hmm.
didn't have to be perfect all the time? Maybe we would have a little less anxiety. Like our poor mind, we gave it like the most impossible task. We
We
just
did.
like if we
Yes.
just stop giving the mind such an impossible task and allow everything to be as it is,
Hmm.
life might be a little bit more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And that's all I have to say about that.
I was like, that is great. That is a great note to end on. Because yeah, you're right. We
Mic
do.
drop.
Mic drop. Yes. Yeah, because it's still like that goes back to presence. And like we can't be present if our minds are just racing with all the things all the time. So yes. It's a practice. This whole thing is a practice. And sometimes we get tripped up along the way, but that doesn't mean that we aren't doing good work to
Yeah,
become.
and like, yeah, I also wanted to add like in sex, like it's a co-creation. Like,
Hmm.
yes, one person is usually more of the leader, but that doesn't mean that the other person doesn't have any like, the other person still has to give permissions along the way or invitations along the way. Like it's always a co-creation. I just find it's like so amazing when because I like to surrender, I like to be in my feminine, I like to receive. I don't like to take the leadership, but I also like it when my partner picks up on my cues of when I'm ready
Hmm.
for this, that, and the other, or when I'm
Yes.
not, or when I
Yes.
need certain things. Like it's not like I'm expecting him to read my mind. Like I do
Mhm.
say, like talk to me, and
Yeah.
then it's amazing, like just to allow for that co-creation and then to relate that back to life. Like life is also a co-creation. We can ask the universe for what we want. We can be on the lookout for the good things in life. Like
Hmm.
there is always a co-creation in life too.
Absolutely. Yes. Definitely. It's like a group project.
How fun.
Yes. Yay. Well, thank all of you again for hanging out with us. And we will see you soon.